รายการต่อไปนี้เป็นรายการทั่วไปสามารถรับชมได้ทุกวัย
สวัสดีค่ะการแสดงมายากลไม่ว่าเด็กหรือว่าผู้ใหญ่ถ้าเกิดว่าได้ดูก็จะชอบนะคะหลงเสน่ห์ค่ะเพราะว่าตื่นตาตื่นใจแล้วก็ทำให้เกิดข้อสงสัยนะคะว่านักมายากลทำอย่างที่ทำได้ยังไงมองเรามองโลกได้มีโอกาสพูดคุยกับคุณโคเซนติโนนักมายากลระดับโลกชาวออสเตรเลียซึ่งเพิ่งมาเปิดการแสดงในเมืองไทยเมื่อสัปดาห์ที่แล้วโคเซนติโนเป็นนักมายากลรุ่นใหม่ที่น่าจับตามองค่ะเพราะว่ามีความสามารถหลายด้านเล่นมายากลตามท้องถนนก็ได้เล่นบนเวทีใหญ่ก็ได้แล้วก็มีรายการโทรทัศน์ของตัวเองด้วยค่ะนอกจากนี้เขาได้รับรางวัลเมอร์ลินอวอร์ดเมื่อปี 2013 ซึ่งเป็นรางวัลสูงสุดสำหรับอาชีพนักมายากลเปรียบก็เหมือนรางวัลออสการ์สำหรับนักแสดงค่ะเราไปเปิดโลกมายากลกับโคเซนติโนกันค่ะโคเซนติโนมีชื่อเต็มว่าโคเซนติโนปัจจุบันอายุ 33 ปี เป็นชาวออสเตรเลียเชื้อสายอิตาเลียนในวัยเด็กโคเซนติโนประสบปัญหาด้านพัฒนาการในการเรียนรู้ช้าเขาต้องต่อสู้กับมันอย่างยากลำบากแต่แล้วการหลงไหลในมายากลทำให้เขาค้นพบความสามารถของตัวเองกลายเป็นคนที่มั่นใจและพัฒนาตัวเองจนเป็นนักมายากลที่ประสบความสำเร็จในวันนี้โคเซนติโนเป็นนักมายากลที่เล่นได้ทั้งแบบเล่นกับผู้คนตามท้องถนนอย่างใกล้ชิดกลสร้างภาพลวงตาบนเวทีที่ยิ่งใหญ่และกลหลบหนีจากพันธนาการที่อันตรายแบบเสี่ยงตายโดยเขาสามารถผสมผสานมายากลรูปแบบต่างๆมาเป็นโชว์ที่เร้าใจต่อการตาได้โคเซนติโนเคยสร้างผลงานการแสดงมายากลต่างๆในเวทีแข่งขันรายการ Australia's Got Talent ปี 2011 จนได้รับรางวัลรองชนะเลิศและเขาเคยเป็นผู้ชนะในรายการ Dancing with the Stars Australia 2013 นอกจากนั้นโคเซนติโนมีรายการโทรทัศน์ของตัวเองซึ่งได้รับความนิยมไม่เพียงแต่ในออสเตรเลียแต่ยังแพร่หลายไปในอีกหลายประเทศทั่วโลกและเซตอุปกรณ์มายากล Master Illusion by Cosentino ของเขาสามารถทำยอดขายสูงสุดเป็นประวัติการณ์ของการจำหน่ายอุปกรณ์มายากลในประเทศออสเตรเลียด้วยที่สำคัญเขาเคยได้รับรางวัลเมอร์ลินอวอร์ดปี 2013 จากสมาคมนักมายากลนานาชาติซึ่งเป็นรางวัลสูงสุดของแวดวงมายากลปัจจุบันโคเซนติโนเดินทางไปมายากลในหลายประเทศทั่วโลกรวมถึงประเทศไทยซึ่งเขาได้มาเปิดการแสดงมายากล Cosentino Twisted Reality ให้ผู้ชมชาวไทยได้ตื่นตะลึงไปเมื่อสัปดาห์ที่ผ่านมา
Cosentino, what made you fall in love with magic in the first place?
You know, it's an interesting question. I started as a little kid who, believe it or not, was very shy.and introverted, a lot of learning difficulties, low self-esteem. And I stumbled across a magic book in the library, if people still remember what libraries are. And my mother's a school principal. And the last place a kid who doesn't like reading or writing wants to be is the library. But I'm in the puzzle section and I find the magic book. And the magic book has these pictures of very famous vaudevillian magicians, Harry Houdini, Howard Thurston.And I'm engrossed, I'm attracted to it. I'm like, wow, what's going on? In the front of the book, they had magic tricks that you could learn, very difficult instructional reading. So my mother, who was the principal, thought, oh, he's opening a book, he's looking at a book.
She's happy.
Correct. She starts to read to me. And through that process of breaking down the words and analyzing them and saying, you must put your left little pinky here, your right index finger there, analyzing the words, breaking them down, I learned to read.And then, of course, I fell in love with magic through that process. And it was really about my self-esteem. So I wasn't interested in learning tricks to fool people or to be impressive. It was really about just reading and building up my own confidence. And that's what magic gave me. It gave me a very unique skill and a lot of confidence. And then I continued and it blossomed and I had a natural ability for it.
How did you get to learn some of the more difficult magic tricks by yourself, or where did you learn?
Yeah, all self-taught. I never went to a school. It wasn't like in Harry Potter, unfortunately. I wish it was, but I taught myself through reading books and practicing. There was no Google.
At that time.
And there was no YouTube. So let me put it in perspective for you. No Google, no YouTube, books from the library, just starting, the internet was, wasn't even really around. So I had to teach myself. So I would look at a trick or read a description of a trick. And I would think, oh, how does that work? And then I would start to invent my own tricks. And then I would go out and I would perform and they'd go wrong. And then I'd go back and I'd analyze them, I'd study them. And that's how I learned to really work an audience. That's how I really learned to stand up on stage and choose the right people. It's all experimentation. So no teachers, no schools, all hard work.
1:20. Come on, Con.
You are very good at picking locks. How did you learn all these tricks?
I actually learned from a locksmith in Australia. He taught me how to pick locks. He took me through it. I know it's not the best thing to be honest about, but I started picking locks a little bit later on, and I really had a fascination for the mechanics and how they work. And it's I can't pick every single lock. I make sure that when I'm doing my escapes, I've practiced the locks that I'm going to pick. I don't make any false assumption, any false means about that. I'm picking locks that I know I can get through, but I'm always against, it's a race, whether I'm underwater or I've got a timer, etc. But it takes years to learn how the mechanics of the locks work, and the locks are constantly changing. So it's hard to keep up.
What makes your show different than the others?
Usually magicians will focus or hone in on just the street or just the stage. And that's maybe because that's where their passion is. I'm passionate about all of them, the stage, the street magic, the dangerous escapes, the dance. I have dance in my show.
You dance too.
I dance in my show, and that's never been done before. So it's really about entertainment for me. It's about the best way to entertain the audience.
What about disappearing and then reappearing? Is that difficult to do?
It is very difficult. We do it in the show. We reappear, we disappear, we end up, I can't say too much. We end up in the audience. They take a lot of time to put together, to make them baffling, to make them full, to make them entertaining too. We've got a saying that anybody can do a trick, but very few people can actually perform magic. And that's the truth. You've got to turn that trick into into a presentation, into entertainment.
Can you disappear right now, right here?
I can't do that. But that would be good.
How I wish you can bring me with you as well. I always want to know where you guys go.
Sometimes I don't even know where I end up. So I end up in the shopping mall, and sometimes I'm in the park. And
how do you do it?
how do I people,
Can you reveal
no,
the
that's a good
secret?
question. You know what it is? It's there's 7 fundamentals in magic. You can make things appear, disappear, transport. It's really mixing those fundamentals around, creating new presentations, and doing things that you believe the audience want to see. Like, because you've got to evolve and change it. So I can't tell you how I do it. I can only tell you that it's a lot of hard work, and you need to understand all your different methods to create the perfect illusion.
you come up with new ideas for each of your shows?
And that's a really good question. You know, there's a couple of ways. One, you get inspired by the magicians from the past. So for example, in this new show, Twisted Reality, I saw my assistant in half. Everyone knows about the magician sawing the assistant in half. It sounds so old hat and cliche, but they're usually done with wooden boxes. I saw my assistant through clear Perspex boxes. No cloths, no covers. The other way is taking two different tricks or methods and putting them together. So you put two together and you come up with something new, kind of like a remix, like a DJ would do with two songs. I mean, in simple terms. And the third way is trying to get creative, is thinking like a child. So not being childish, but having the vivid imagination of a child. For example, I have 6 nephews and nieces.
They all must love you.
I'm a pretty cool uncle. And when you're a child, there's no ceilings, there's no boundaries. My nephews and nieces will always say to me, Uncle Cos, why don't you walk through a wall? Or why don't you just levitate? It's that innocence that is creative. So I try to tap into that and think, if I was a kid, I'm not a kid, I'm an adult, but if I was a kid, what would I really like to do? What would be magical to me? And then it's working backwards and going, okay, there's the idea. How can I do it? What method can I use? Is it trapdoors? Is it mirrors? Is it hologram? What is it that I'm going to get to that point? And that's how you stay fresh and creative.
Which are the most difficult tricks that you have ever performed?
They vary, you know, some illusions take 2 weeks to master with your hands and your dexterity. Some take 3 months. By the time you learn the technique, the method, then you've got to add the presentation on top. That'd be the dance, the speech, the patter. It takes, you know, months of prepping. So the most difficult are the escapes, the one-off escapes. You know, you train months at a time, 6 months to do an underwater escape, which only lasts 2 minutes. You know, you physically go through this training to make yourself as fit as you possibly can be. Because when you're holding your breath, the fitter you are, the safer you will be. And, you know, I want to hold my breath for a really long time. You know, we're holding it for, 7 minutes, all things being equal underwater. So it's a lot of physical training. And then, the illusions take a lot of creativity to come up with presentations that really boggle the mind.
This is a dangerous, somehow risky business that you're in, right? Is it dangerous?
When I do the escapes, there's a distinct line. Magic and illusions. It's make-believe, it's fantasy, it's Hollywood, it's a blockbuster. When you do the escapes, it's no fantasy. Real locks, real water, real chains, real injuries.
But you practiced with the locks before.
We do. We practice, we spend hours upon hours practicing to make sure that the presentations are perfect, that the timing is right. When my timing's been off, if you've seen my TV shows, I've been slashed by knives, I've ruptured eardrums, I've broken ribs. These aren't things that I intended. I don't want to go to the emergency room, but these happen because of the little slip-ups.
Is it much more difficult to please the audience these days? They somehow get more sophisticated. They look at every single detail, any mistake that you might do,
It is true. The audiences are very clever, very smart, and they can go on Google straight away and they can try and work out how the trick is done. So that is true. With that being said, I have found in the last, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years, with Google and YouTube and all this technology at your fingertips, people are more intrigued about magic now than they've ever been.
Why?
And I think because we have the information at our hands at a touch of a button, and then you can fool them or you can impress them, then all of a sudden they kind of think, well, it's almost more potent or more powerful. That's what I've experienced personally. It's very interesting.
Within magician circle, around the world, can you also understand how tricks of other magicians are done and vice versa? They also know as well how you do your tricks.
Of course, yeah. I can watch a magician and I'll know how their tricks are done and vice versa. But you know what it's about? For me, it's about the presentation. So I'll see a trick and I won't go, oh, I know how it's done. That doesn't impress me. What impresses me is how did they execute it? What patter, what speech did they use? How was their misdirection? All those aspects, that's what impresses me. And I think that's truly what's worthy of success.
In the movie, Now You See Me, you have watched it, right?
I have indeed.
It says, the more you see, the less you might get to see actually. The closer you get, you might get to see less. Is that how magic tricks work?
That is one aspect of it. That the closer you watch, the less you'll see. Correct. What that is really about is what we call misdirection, or directing your attention to where I want you to look. So if I look at my hands, you look at my hands. If I look over to the side, you look over to the side.
But the magic is happening here.
Correct. So although you think you're watching really closely, are you really? When everything's happening back there, that's what it's about. There's a lot of psychology in the magic. This is one of the first tricks I learned. Very, very simple. Little piece of string. I'll get you to hold that. Okay, so it's one piece.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to break it up into little pieces. Okay, so that's 1, 2,
Right.
3.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what's that? 4 or 5 pieces?
That's right. I'm trying my best to look at your hands and look elsewhere as well as
Okay.
you taught me about misdirection.
Maybe do another piece, just like
Right.
that. But is that fair? They're all broken up?
Right?
Okay. I'm going to roll them into a nice, neat little ball, just like this. Okay. Just gonna. I want you to pinch the string.
Wow. Thank you.
โคเซนติโนมีบุคคลต้นแบบที่เขาชื่นชมเป็นอย่างมาก นั่นคือแฮร์รี่ฮูดินีนักมายากลระดับตำนานที่ย้ายจากฮังการีมาอยู่อเมริกาตั้งแต่เด็กแฮร์รี่ฮูดินีเป็นผู้เชี่ยวชาญการหลบหนีจากพันธนาการที่สร้างความตื่นตะลึงให้ผู้คนมาแล้วทั่วโลกในปี 2010 โคเซนติโนได้แสดงกลการหลบหนีจากพันธนาการอย่างแน่นหนาขณะที่อยู่ในตู้ปลาขนาดใหญ่ของเมลเบิร์นการแสดงเสียงตายนี้เพื่อเป็นเกียรติให้กับแฮร์รี่ฮูดินีที่เขายกย่อง
And your hero since you were young is Harry Houdini.
Harry Houdini.
Why is that? Among all magicians.
You know, Harry Houdini was the first magician I saw in that book. He had these handcuffs up his wrist, and he was standing there. And as a 12-year-old kid, I thought, what's he doing? Who is he? And more importantly, why is he doing it? Why? Why would you do this? As I matured and I had a more of an appreciation for my craft, I read more about Harry Houdini. I understood what he stood for. He was more of a metaphor. You know, this little guy came to America, an immigrant. His claim was, nothing on earth can hold Houdini prisoner. And during the Depression, that was really important because it sent a message that, you know, you can't suppress us, you can't hold us down, you can't stop us. And so he was more than just an escape artist, he was a symbol of hope. And reading about that as a kid was really fascinating, and I thought, wow, he's tapped into more than just a trick or more than an escape. The same way that a really good singer can sing a song, and sometimes you'll say, yeah, that's a great song. Well, that's fine, but other times a singer will really touch you. They're connecting in a different way, and that's what Houdini did, and that's what really inspires me. If I can, in my magic, somehow connect, then you transcend just tricks.
What were your major challenges that you faced in becoming a career, a professional magician?
Yeah, I come from a pretty strict Italian Australian family. My dad's a structural engineer, my mum's a school principal, my oldest brother's a structural engineer, my other brother's got a degree in marketing, and I wanted to be a magician. We all went to private schools. Parents were very strict on education, and my mother claims that, well, she says that she was a very good dancer when she was young, but never had the opportunities when she migrated to Australia to pursue dancing. She had to do another profession. So she was always very supportive and encouraging that whatever your passion, whether it is to be a lawyer or a doctor or a magician, that she wanted me to pursue it. That doesn't mean it's been easy. It's been, a very difficult road. And in my country, there was never ever for lack of a better word, a famous Australian magician before me, ever. Not with their own TV shows. We've broken a lot of ground and really paved the way for young magicians.
What would be your advice for people who might want to become a career magician like you, but maybe it's not a profession that is viable in the eyes of their parents or
I know.
people around them?
I completely understand, and it's I really believe no matter what your passion, whatever you want to do, and my parents instilled this in me. And once again, to put it in context, a very educated family. I think they wanted me to be happy and to have a passion. If my passion was magic, or if my passion was soccer, or if my passion was to be a doctor, whatever that may be, as long as you do it with passion, it's really important that just do your job. You've got to love what you do. And I loved magic, so my parents really encouraged me and supported me. So to kids out there, I would say, whatever your passion, doesn't have to be magic, but if it is magic, practice a lot. Try and find your own individuality. Go out there and perform and work out what works for you. Did the audience respond in that way? Did they laugh? Were they in shock? And then you can kind of, over time, find your own individuality. And that was something that I had to learn early on. I always thought, the audience, I've got long hair and I've got piercings, and how's the audience going to respond? And that's how I felt before I went on Australia's Got Talent. I was a bit, insecure about it. And what's made me successful and different and unique and wonderful is all those traits which in the beginning made me insecure. So I say to kids out there, be yourself. Be yourself.
ถึงแม้ว่ามายากลดูแล้วจะเป็นศาสตร์ที่ลึกลับดูเป็นปริศนานะคะแต่ว่าเคล็ดลับสู่การเป็นนักมายากลที่ประสบความสำเร็จก็ไม่ได้ต่างอะไรจากอาชีพอื่นค่ะนั่นก็คือต้องรักสิ่งที่ตัวเองทำและต้องหมั่นขยันฝึกซ้อมไม่ยอมแพ้นะคะที่จะพัฒนาตัวเองตลอดเวลาสิ่งมหัศจรรย์ก็จะเกิดขึ้นกับผู้ที่ใส่ความพยายามอย่างเต็มที่ไม่ต้องพึ่งพาเวทมนต์ใดๆค่ะพบกันใหม่สัปดาห์หน้าวันนี้สวัสดีค่ะ